Thank you very much. Mama Flo, your last word, parting shot.
Oh, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming to this space, and thank you, Dr. Matsanger, for hosting us. Dr. Matsanger, I think firing squad and life sentence is not really like going to be the solution, like other speakers have said, and like I said previously, we need to change the systems. We need to go back to civic education and patriotism, and learn to love our country and be accountable, with I mean, hold ourselves accountable. Like everybody should be accountable. Not only the leaders, it should be us, like me and you and everybody else. And I mean, the least we can do for now is expose the corrupt and not shield them. And also, Dr. Masanga, if you remember before in Uganda, we used to have a system whereby, the head teachers, for instance, I'm just going to go to like one institution, let's say the education sector. When these leaders like head teachers or judges stay in a position for so long, that alone makes them sort of like get into the system, and then that's how corruption starts. Remember before, everything was like sort of like nationwide, whereby they need to keep changing them every like not have, let's say, a head teacher stay in the same school for like more than 10 years. They need to keep changing them. The same judge staying in the same district for so long, they get so comfortable and start, looking for all sorts of ways of making money because they know the system. The same police officers, I mean, they used to rotate people, even the military men. I think you remember. That we need to go back to the old system. We need to, even if we put back the firing squad or the life centers, unless we change the people or take them back and train them. And since I don't know how we're going to do it, but the same, like I said before, Dr. Matsanga, the same people who are supposed to be implementing the firing squad and the life sentences, they're corrupt themselves. So we need to have a whole overhaul in our judicial system, in our education system. I mean, it's a long thing. It's a long shot, but let's keep preaching the gospel against corruption and keep exposing the corrupt. Whether let's not just wait to expose the leaders or the heads of state, even if it's a teacher, even if it's a police person, even if it's somebody uh like an LC, a local councillor. That's the only thing I can think. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody, for taking time off your busy schedules and joining us on this space. And thank you, Dr. Masanga, for always hosting us. And thank you for always bringing interesting topics that are very beneficial to us as Africans. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mama Flo, and thank you very much, the rest of the platform. This is my summary. The African continent is endowed with quite a lot of resources. The creation of this continent was God's making. It wasn't a decision from us, neither was it a decision from anybody else except God. The African continent was cut off from the rest of the world. We have water surrounding us. We had to dig the Suez Canal to expand it. But all over, across, on the entire continent, was surrounded by water. One question we should ask ourselves, why? Why did God do that? Perhaps God made us different people. Perhaps we are special people in the eyes of God. And perhaps God has a mission for us. Have we utilized our resources given to us by God, denied to other people in the other continents? Do we utilize them properly? These are the questions that linger in our minds every day. As we walk, as we quarrel, as we engage ourselves in conflicts, as we fight wars, as we invade other countries, as we gather in the African Union Hall every year in and out, is there something that we learn? Why has the entire continent, with a population of 1.4 billion people, failed to utilize the population, failed to make the population see the sense of unity that China 40 years ago went back to factory resetting, to reset itself? It was one of the poorest countries across the world. It was not even a member of the United Nations Security Council. But the people, the leadership in China at that time, the Big Five, the Mao Zedong group, and others who wanted reforms, sat down and said, what do we do with our growing population? Let's go back to basics. Is it time for Africa to look at itself and go back to basics? I still leave these answers to you. I will make questions and leave them for you to answer as you ponder going home. As you go home, ponder over these questions. Journalists can write, students can write. Mine is a summary. The root causes of corruption are many. It includes mindset. Are we locked in the other mindset that we don't change? If there are no social infrastructure, if we don't have infrastructure, how do you expect a teacher to teach a student in a classroom which has no blackboard? How do you expect a doctor to treat a patient if the hospital has no medicine to give the patient? How do you then expect the people that govern states if the collection of taxes and the 3/4 of the taxes end up in hands of the system that does not explain properly? What does it lead to us? It leads to one major thing: institutions. If you don't have institutions, even institutions to shoot these people, there must be an institution. I don't know whether people know that. For you to create a firing squad, you need an institution, experts to shoot. Life sentence, prisons will need people. If you send people to life prison 50 years, 100 years, 20 years, like what Singapore did, you still need institutions. If you have a bad institution of prisons agency, you will find customers even in prison who have been imprisoned, some of them because of corruption, practicing corruption and drugs in their prisons. This is happening in Africa. Across Africa, the entire continent, we have this dilemma. Why do we bank money when we have sent people in Europe, America, who bring in the little currency, and then we take it out to bank in Switzerland? How many leaders in Africa have died and left the money without any their wives not knowing the PIN numbers? Has somebody sat down to ask why Switzerland is the most powerful nation in Europe, yet it doesn't have oil? It does not have minerals. It has only ice skating, where you can die and you might not come back. The more you go to the ice, the more you think of going to hell or heaven. That's all tourism. Simple hotel management. But they have our money. They bank our money. They bank the stolen money of Abacha. They bank the stolen money of Mabutu Sese Seko. They bank the stolen money of Bokassa. They bank the stolen money of all these leaders who have died and they left their bank accounts in Switzerland, where they don't tell the PIN number to their wives. Because if they told the PIN number to their wives, at least wives could bring this money to the children. If you look at the children of the former presidents on the continent of Africa, some of them are very poor, like church mouse, or worse than church mouse, which looks at the priest when he's counting the money. But it doesn't take part in what takes place. So, which direction do we go, Africa? Root causes of corruption. Corruption takes two to tango. Two people there must be the one giving and the one taking. 3/4 of the corruption is embedded in contracts. Does Africa have a due diligence formula? How many African countries have due diligence formulas of checking every investor? Today we have as many investors. So once somebody puts on a tie, a suit, is a good perfume, arrives in your city, goes to your nightclub, goes to your restaurant, gets very beautiful ladies surrounding him. People have brought another lady, this one is not good. You give them a contract, an investor. He runs after a few 5 months, he doesn't complete the project because he was not an investor. What is investment then? Investor must have a capital. But most of the investors in Africa are using our own capital. A man comes to say he's investing in a sugarcane plantation to produce sugar, but he takes your land title and uses it on a stock exchange in London to obtain money. It's not his money. How then can Africa eradicate corruption? It can only eradicate corruption through stringent, well-organized, tough institutions. Whether you agree or disagree with firing squad or life sentence, the fact remains you need institutions. You need civic education. You need social structures that will bring about a better Africa. You can even condemn your president. Continue condemning. You can condemn anybody on the continent of Africa. But as long as we don't put trust in the institutions that have been mandated to investigate, like South Africa as a system, they have managed to investigate cases and bring a Speaker of Parliament to accountability, bring a president of the nation, former president, to accountability. The public prosecutor of South Africa, the most hated lady in South Africa, former public prosecutor, very strong woman. He has investigated presidents. You saw what he did. You saw what she did. She brought down some presidents. She investigated. Let's have those type of institutions that once you are arrested, your home, your only journey is jail. And there's no, some countries even have got rotten criminal justice systems. And I want to ask the countries to change the criminal justice systems. We in Africa have not reached that level of Britain. We want to fight corruption like Britain. But we can begin by changing criminal justice system to deter thieves from touching our money. There are some countries in Africa where you steal money on Friday, you hide it, or you hide it with your relatives in a box somewhere. On Monday morning, they give you bail. You use the same money that you have stolen. You pay the court bail condition. You start the following day. They tell you to leave the passport in the court. You go to the immigration office and get a new passport. Travel to Dubai, get concubines, and enjoy the money you have stolen. Yes, yes. They steal on Friday. They sleep there 2 days. On Monday, they are out on bail. It is for that matter today that I support fully what President Museveni talks about, change of bail conditions. If you have stolen 400 million, 4 million dollars worth of money, why should you be given bail to go back and enjoy? If they are recovering that money, even the police will recover it in their pockets. Some of these exhibits, have you ever seen them? Have you? Some exhibits don't even come to court. They bring a sample like this, that this is what we found out. They can publish that 4 million shillings or dollars were stolen from EcoBank in Zimbabwe. But you go to the courts and find out the type of exhibit they bring. It is not the money they recovered. It is money that they have divided themselves and taken. I want to say, Lilian, you wanted to come up.
Hi, Dr. Matanga. Yes, I had to drop. I had some engagement elsewhere, but I don't know what my contribution. Probably people have spoken about what I'm going to offer as my contribution already. So for me, I think the topic of the day about introducing the firing squad in Africa for corruption. For me, yes, it could work as a deterrent measure. But for me, that equates to treating the symptoms. Maybe if we can dig deeper and first of all build strong institutions, independent institutions, we should have a separation of powers in African countries. Because if we have a separation of powers and strong institutions that are independent of, what can I say? That are independent. First of all, if it's the issue of tenders, for example, if we have strong independent institutions that follow the rule of law, it then reduces the risk of corruption. One. Two, if we have a separation of powers, any institution will be working independently, be it the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. For me, that's the starting point. What we should first look at. I'm not disagreeing that you introducing the firing squads could deter. It can. But maybe we need to first look at the root cause of the problem and fix it from there. Then everything else, I would think it will fall into place. That's just my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lilian Donga from Zimbabwe, the great country in Southern Africa. They are my people. I always stand by them, with them all the time. From 1998, I've stood by that country. And that's the spirit. You don't need to go and ask for money from them. I will stand with them up to the end. Because if you went there as a volunteer, you can't turn up as a millionaire. You must stand back as a patriotic African. That's my policy. That's why some people ask me, what do you get from Zimbabwe that you stand so much, you talk about, you defend? I don't defend individuals. I defend a nation. I defend a nation. And that nation is called Zimbabwe. That's why at times I'm very upset with people who come to my platform with flags upside down. You should not be annoyed with the nation. A flag is a national symbol. And a national anthem is a national symbol. You don't get annoyed with a flag. Get annoyed with the people who were given that flag. Don't destroy the flag. Don't change the flag upside down. That's all I always preach. I know it is difficult, some differing circumstances. Lydia Ndonga, we shall continue to interact because it looks like your subjects are my subjects. International law and the politics. This is where I go. I always go to courts.
That's exactly what I just wanted to say, that when I looked at your profile, I noticed we look around the same subject areas.
Exactly. I always file those tough cases in court in Netherlands on ICC, ICJ, courts like the European Court of Justice on the sanctions on Zimbabwe. I filed the first one, which let the ministers off. And Arusha Court, African Court of Justice, have filed at least 2 cases. The release of Nnamdi Kanu, and I'm now moving to the Commonwealth on 17th to take more summons. I filed that case to stop Paul Biya from coming to United Kingdom for any medical treatment. And I'm happy now he goes to Saudi Arabia or Paris. As we speak now, he's in an intensive care unit in Paris. That is a success, Dr. Matsanga. I'm happy. I just wanted the summons for him to come, that in case you see him around the Heathrow Airport, the judge agreed with me. He should come and explain. It's not a warrant, but he just come and explain. If the judge is not, not satisfied, you can have your medicine on the bed with handcuffs on, not so that you don't go. So that's how I followed. I picked that Pinochet system, and I've read it. I use it. So when you come around insulting people and so on, not that I'm told Mr. Tinubu has left for Saudi Arabia after yesterday's my letter to the Prime Minister last night on Saturday to say you are going to talk to that guy, but that guy has kidnapped someone, a British citizen who's languishing. So how is he coming to take our medicine? The medicine in the hospital that we work so hard to pay for. I think he was told, we are not comfortable with your presence here. He's heading to Saudi Arabia for treatment. He can take the doctors and they operate him there, but not in the place where people pay. And then there are no hospital medicines in Nigeria, Abuja, and Lagos. So thank you, Donga. Let's exchange numbers. I've already left my message. Thank you for coming. Let's see what we can do to help Africa.